Wokeism number 6, and we're going to lump 2 together here. It's I can't breathe and hands up, don't shoot. And both of those, the woke origins are, of course, the I can't breathe is the whole George Floyd issue, which I don't think even needs any kind of, like everyone knows almost every detail of it.
Sure.
But we'll address it a little bit. Just real quick, and then the hands up, don't shoot comes from the Michael Brown. That people, one person, so of all the eyewitnesses, one person said his hands were up and he was surrendering. Everyone else says no, he was actually reaching for the sidearm of the police officer and fighting, and so he ended up getting shot, of course. But the narrative is that Michael Brown surrendered, he put his hands up and he was shot in the back. Just not accurate any more than the whole George Floyd thing is accurate.
Yeah, if you watch the whole video of George Floyd, he was saying I can't breathe while he was still in the vehicle.
Right.
Yep.
And he actually requested to go to the ground. And if you watch the whole video, the cops were actually pretty patient with him. We didn't see the whole video from the beginning.
Right.
I think in our first podcast we were off on it because we didn't have some of the information.
Right. He said what he said inside the car. I can't breathe. Okay. Might it have been, as he admitted, he had COVID or had just gotten over COVID.
Sure.
And that he just swallowed a bunch of drugs he actually admitted. And we know what drugs it was. Fentanyl.
Yeah. Which
leads to an inability to breathe.
And he also had cardiac problems.
Correct. Which COVID does not help.
No.
Right?
Not at all. Right.
That leads to heart problems. So when it comes to him being on fentanyl and COVID and all that other stuff.
And heart disease, too.
And heart disease. Right. No wonder he couldn't breathe. Or said he couldn't breathe. Now, here's the thing, and you won't understand this if you're not someone that's been in the situation on a regular basis. Like people don't understand certain things about what it is like to be a pastor.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they don't understand why you respond to certain things. Well, you could have done things differently. It's like,
you're not in my shoes.
When was the last time you sat in on a counsel? Like, I've been through this counseling many times.
Right.
So they're going, okay, well, a police officer's used to people lying to them. Criminals lie to them constantly.
Right. My dad's retired. He worked in a prison, and that's the thing he said when he watched the video. He's like, people always say that. They always say I can't breathe. They always say my chest hurts because they want you to get off of them so they can,
do whatever.
And they do it for various reasons.
Wolf.
They do it for attention. They do it just to leave their cell.
Right.
Yeah. It could be whatever.
They literally go to the hospital just to change out their day. They'll complain of chest pain so they can get transported to the hospital because think about it, they're bored.
Right.
But somebody may not understand that if you don't work in the prison system or in law enforcement.
Right. So that would be why I would say that this was an issue. So let's talk a little bit about the police training that went with the way. And again, I'm not at this point. I can't. I think there was negligence. My opinion. On the part of Chauvin. I think there was negligence in that it was starting to get pretty apparent to anybody who was watching the scene that he really wasn't breathing. Maybe you ought to assist him at that point.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say purposeful, but I would say negligent because the guy obviously just like falling asleep on you, man. You know what I mean? There's something going on here. But there's training behind the whole kneeling on the head, the neck, the shoulders.
And we'll have it.
What's that?
To be fully honest, they should just not listen to him. Just shove.
Who's talking?
Yeah, Caleb.
She actually said something. Wait a minute. Now,
he made a good point.
No, I needed to hear it because I was stunned that there was a third voice or a fourth voice. What did you say there?
Well, they shouldn't have even listened to him saying, take me on the ground because they should have just shoved him in the car and taken him to the station.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have listened to him.
Yeah.
But he did say I can't breathe in the car, so they took him out.
The car's not any better.
But he also was kicking And every time they got him sort of in the car, he would get part of his body out of the car. He's a big guy.
He's a tall
big guy, and I'm sure pretty strong.
Caleb makes a good point. Just, you know what? They all say that, all the criminals and stuff, they'll say that.
Sure.
Just throw them in the car, and then you avoid the situation.
Yeah.
But that's hindsight looking at what happened. But they actually have training, and you guys can see this, and we'll put it up there for the audience. But as you guys can see, literally, you look at the camera version of Chauvin and how he's got his knees placed and how the other officers are in place. Literally in their training manual, the Minneapolis Police Department, which I'm sure has been removed now, but you can still find this online, and it was online at the time. And it shows them kneeling on his neck like this, having him partially on his stomach. Now, I'm trained in CPR, and I've learned of the recovery position, which is on your left side. Okay, but this is a little bit different, probably because he's in handcuffs. And there's a few bullet points here, and it says, sudden cardiac arrest typically occurs immediately following a violent struggle. So if there's a thought that this guy could be having cardiac arrest, it would make sense that they would remove him from the vehicle, which they did actually per his request, per George Floyd's request, and they would place him in this recovery position. The next bullet point says, place the subject in recovery position to alleviate positional asphyxia. They're doing this because of their training. And it says, once in handcuffs, get EMS on scene quickly to monitor the and
So
transport.
they're saying put him on his chest to breathe?
I believe it's because he's in handcuffs they have to. The recovery position that I was trained in is on your left side.
Yeah, you would put, in fact, one of the police officers even suggests, should we roll him onto his side?
Should we roll him on his side, yeah.
I would say if that's literally saying the best position for breathing is on the chest.
It doesn't say it, but the picture shows it.
That would be grossly inaccurate.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
It's harder to breathe when you're on your chest.
On your stomach. Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah, but it's still, I don't believe him being on his chest and the kneeling had anything to do with his breathing. I don't think it affected it. I think it was the fentanyl, the drugs, recently having COVID, and his already had cardiac problems.
If he was healthy, that's something they do routine, is what you're saying.
Right. So here's
and then it just goes on. It says once in handcuffs, get EMS to the scene quickly and to monitor and transport. And then it gives a couple other things about how they should fill out their reports after. But the picture shows the exact same thing. Honestly, Derek Chauvin is going to spend 20-something years in prison, and he did what he was trained to do. There's no justice anymore, and that's the scary thing.
He may.
He may if things calm down. I don't know.
Do you believe that there was no negligence there when the guy was...
When I watched the video, even seeing this and even seeing the training, to me, watching the video...
he looked like he was dying.
Yeah.
So if the guy's dying...
But what do you want them to do?
Well, it's not about the knee to me at that point. At that point, I want him to address this guy,
but
and I'm sure every police officer is trained in CPR.
CPR, okay. Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking, is at least maybe start administering CPR. However...
How about you and take your hand off, and feel for a pulse.
Right.
If it's slowing down a lot, do something.
But I don't know what their training is. Are they allowed to administer CPR? I've heard in some police departments they shouldn't. Like if you shot somebody, it's unfortunately we're in a litigious society. If you are the one who shot somebody and then you try to administer aid and they die, you're opening yourself up to liability.
I understand
because they can start saying, "Oh, you did something to purposely kill." So maybe
I think in either situation,
the training
you're liable.
is
proof.
Right.
His training is this. Place the subject in the recovery position to alleviate positional asphyxia. Once in handcuffs, get EMS to the scene. That's their training that I can see. So perhaps they're not allowed. I agree with you.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to see too, is like, well, do something. Why are you still...
So then
I saw no need to continue to sit like that.
Here is the bigger problem. Police are sworn to serve and to protect and to uphold the Constitution. How they've been programmed or trained goes against that. So that, have you ever seen it, like somebody's not doing anything wrong and they're being arrested and they're asking the police officer, what am I being charged with? And they're just dead silent. They say nothing. You legally have to tell me what I'm being obtained for.
Right, absolutely.
Why am I being,
I saw that while they were arresting a pastor in Canada for holding church services.
Right. Why am I being arrested? Nothing.
Yeah.
So again, but they're just trained to be quiet. But they're breaking
that's
the law.
illegal. That's illegal.
I agree with you. I'm only making the point that I don't believe there was any intent to kill him, and I don't believe it's appropriate to give him a 20-year sentence.
I agree.
Or really any jail time.
I would say, I think negligence, he could have helped him. I think it was his responsibility, maybe even not legally, but morally,
to try to start administering CPR.
to check on him, check his vitals. Obviously, he went from a man doing a lot of kicking and fussing to a man that was barely ain't moving.
Yeah.
And the people were saying, dude, look at him. He looks.
Yes.
People were saying that, and he just didn't respond because of training.
Right. That's what I was
And
going to
that's
bring
where
up.
I think this is what. Okay, so I want Bible here, and this is where I go with this. Micah 6:8. Caleb, pull Micah 6:8 up.
People were around him. And that also...
You can't respond to the crowd, though.
Yeah, but he was. Chauvin was looking around.
But why
like
can't you
this.
respond to the crowd? What if the crowd's right?
That's what I mean. Like Chauvin was nervous. You could see in the video. He's looking around, and dude, the cops were surrounding that car. They weren't nervous.
Yeah.
Even the cops, they were just holding people back. They weren't even looking behind.
They weren't.
Look at
They weren't.
They're such
I think
robots.
that's the issue. That's the issue. You should have certain cops there that are there for the crowd control so that he can focus on the situation at hand.
And we're going to talk.
I don't disagree with. I mean, I agree that things could have been done differently.
We're going to talk about policing soon enough. So we need to jump off of this because there's a wokeism is defund the police. So we're going to get there when we get there. And I think you and I will probably have a very similar opinion about this, and you're probably stronger against, but we'll get there when we get there. Micah 6:8 says, "He hath showed thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God." So when it comes to the whole I can't breathe and hands up, don't shoot thing, I question, how does one define justice?
Right.
And I see this as an issue of justice or injustice. And again, how does one define justice? Well, which side? Again, this is such different narratives and such different thinking between right and left people. So was it, as you mentioned earlier, was it justice that the body cam footage came out months after?
No. There's
I would
no
say
way
that lacks justice.
There's no way he could have a fair trial.
No. Was it justice to hide the fact that Floyd said he couldn't breathe a minimum of 3 times before he was ever leaned on?
Yeah.
Was it justice that Maxine Waters and President Biden were chiming in on what they thought the verdict should be?
Yeah.
That's insane.
And that there'd be rioting if it's
and that
not.
they should go into the streets and riot if it's not what we say it should be.
And the fact that the jury should have been secret. Nobody should have known who was on the jury. There should be no pictures of them, their addresses. The jury was fearful.
Was it justice, I'm going to say, for George Floyd that he put fentanyl in his body? Right. And what I'm saying is, if I could talk to him as a drug addict and reason, are you doing yourself justice?
Right, amen.
By inflicting yourself with these harmful chemicals? Right. What I would also reason, is it reasonable, is it justice for you, George Floyd, to become a career criminal?
Right.
Yeah.
This whole thing, no matter which side you fall on, to me, it screams of injustice.
It's ugly.
If justice is what the woke mob is after and what they demand, well, they better understand what are the terms of justice. What does justice mean? And I'm going to tell you, when it comes to the court of law, justice is
blind.
Blind. Liberty is blind. Justice is blind. Why? Because she seeks the truth.
Amen.
Justice is linked with truth. So you can't hide aspects of the truth.
Right.
And it be justice.
Right.
So they're out there demanding justice while you're hiding aspects of truth. That in itself spits in the face of justice.
Right.
One thing that needs to be pointed out, I think, is they claim that this had to do with race. There's no evidence it had anything to do with race.
Amen.
No evidence.
And I want people to look up a man named Tony Timpa. If you go on DuckDuckGo, I'm not going to recommend Google. Tony Timpa, August 2016, Dallas police knelt on his back for roughly 14 minutes, laughing and joking the whole time, mocking this man. The police even joked after they started wondering, is this guy breathing? Is he asked, is he dead? Is he alive still? They joked. The one officer, you can hear him on the tape say, I hope I didn't kill him. And then you hear the other officers laughing about it.
They did.
By the way, Tony Timpa, and this is one of the things that, and I know it'll get my brother going and stuff too, because he's big on this, and we would discuss more when we talk about policing, is Tony Timpa actually called the police for assistance. Unlike Floyd, who's a career criminal and was doing something wrong, worthy of death? No, but was doing something wrong, and the police were called to respond to him, and he was combative. This guy, Tony, called for police assistance. I guess he was schizophrenic and he hadn't taken his medication and he asked for assistance. I don't know what led up to this, but they got him in that similar position. They knelt on his back, roughly 14 minutes, laughing and mocking him, and said, I hope I didn't kill him.
Yeah.
But
he wasn't black.
Tony wasn't black, so no uproar.
Right.
No. It didn't fit the narrative.
Yeah, right. So that's what this, unless we got something else to add, that was wokeism number 6, if you will. And I, like I said, I lumped 2 of them together. I can't breathe and hands up, don't shoot. But it's like a woke slogan now.
Yeah, absolutely.
They walk around the streets saying this stuff to promote their, let's be honest, leftist ideology.
Right.
They say the same stuff with George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin. Now, it turned out, we don't have to get into it, but George Zimmerman is kind of an idiot. He did some stupid things after the fact. But the reality of it is this, that the evidence points to that it was a justified self-defense shooting. Now, I could argue that he probably shouldn't have gotten involved, should have just called the police and let them handle it. But he got involved. He was jumped by Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin was beating him, and his wounds on his head and on his face match what was said that happened, and he shot him in self-defense. George Zimmerman shot Trayvon in self-defense. The media edited the tape, and I remember this in real time happening. And I'm not going to quote it verbatim because I can't remember it all right away, but you can look this up. The original tape that was released goes something along the lines of George Zimmerman calling the police before the incident occurred, saying, hey, there's a guy walking around my neighborhood in a hoodie. I think he's black. That was what you heard initially.
Sure.
When you heard the full tape that they were forced to release, you heard, hey, there's a guy in my neighborhood in a hoodie walking around. I don't recognize him. He's not from here. He's walking around behind the houses. Maybe he's up to no good. Can you describe him for me?
There you go.
Right.
Oh, I don't know, 5'8".
Sound like,
you know, and then they literally asked what his ethnicity was, and he goes, I think he's black.
Right.
That's what the reality was.
They made it sound like he had a problem with him around the neighborhood because he's black.
Not only that, what did they call George Zimmerman? A white Hispanic.
Right. That's right.
I looked at the dude. He was darker than his black lawyer. I remember a newspaper article that came out that they literally made George Zimmerman look whiter than he actually was. Because I saw it on video. I saw George Zimmerman standing next to, it looked like maybe his lawyer may have been like half black, half white, perhaps.
Sure. Right.
And George was actually a little bit darker than the guy. He doesn't look like a white guy. Now, he's got a white name, George Zimmerman, you know, but he's a Hispanic.
But it's not woke.
It's not woke. But they had to make it a white man targeting a black kid.
I get that, because that's woke.
So he became a white Hispanic rather than a Hispanic.
And that's why we're doing wokeisms.
And unfortunately, George Zimmerman turned out to be kind of an idiot anyway, because he did some stupid, foolish things, you know, that you can look up later after the fact. But, you know, that's too bad. But the thing is they had to push this narrative, and they're doing the same thing. They did the same thing with George Floyd, and they also did the same thing with Michael Brown and Darren Wilson.
Yep.
Okay, well, that was wokeism number 6.